All right, so we're going to change gears. We're going to talk about making money with sublimation. You know, it's my favorite subject, making money. Sounds so greedy, but you know, you're in business, right? And what's your goal in business?
Make money.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how many people I meet that they're like embarrassed to make money or something. It's, I can't charge that. And I'm like, why not? If somebody will pay it, charge it. Okay? My other rule of thumb is everything's for sale. If you have a retail store and you have a cash register and someone wants to buy it, sell it to them. As long as you make a profit. You can always get another one. Okay? You're in business to make money. But in reality, I mean, years ago, I was helping set up a retail store that did personalization. And one of the backers for it thought, well, you should do a lot for Valentine's. I'm like, no, the stuff we make, no one's going to buy it for Valentine's. But to make the store interesting, it was in a shopping mall. We filled the store up with those little foil balloons on Valentine's. And so somebody comes in the store, first person in that morning, what do they want to buy? They want to buy monogrammed, personalized gifts? No, they want to buy the balloons. But the little girl working behind the counter was like, oh, I'm sorry, they're not for sale. That's just part of our, decoration. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, sell them the balloons. And the next year we got twice as many because we figured out that's what people want to buy. But, that's it, man. You're in business to make money, and you look for those angles. You also try to figure out what doesn't make money and, walk away from that too. Okay. So, sublimation's everywhere. It really is. And the more you know about sublimation, the more you'll start to see it, or you'll start to see applications for it. But it's one of these things that people don't really know what it is. So if you tell people you're a sublimator, they have no idea what that means. I mean, does that mean you work on subways or what? I mean, you don't know, okay? And a lot of times people in the production business, we focus on trying to explain to people like it's a mandate what we do and how we do it. The same thing I was talking about with being an embroiderer or in the beginning, okay? It's really hard to explain to people. And then guys all think that I don't know what they think, but they think you're weird, okay? So, and then half the other people think you're doing needlepoint, so that they don't understand what that is. So just tell people you do embroidery doesn't work. Tell people you do sublimation really doesn't work. To tell people you do decoration really doesn't work. It doesn't really even matter when it comes down to it, okay? There are certain instances where maybe it does, but the real focus for you to making money is not selling people sublimation or selling people on the concept of sublimation. It has its points when we talk about the, performance apparel. Sublimated performance apparel, as he can attest to back there with his 100 washings, looks just as good now as it did when he first, came off the heat press. Okay, but beyond that, that's not really what it's all about. I mean, we got it everywhere, and we don't really have to focus on that too much. Okay, but we do need to focus on what we can create with sublimation. And it really can expand your reach. If you're already in business, I know some of you are doing embroidery. We got some screen printers. We got some different people. They're in business already, and sublimation's an add-on. And what's really important here is the Ad Specialty Institute, ASI, they did a survey where they said, you know what, it takes 6 times more energy, effort, and money to recruit a new customer than to service an existing customer. But we spend all our days trying to get new customers. Yeah, we need new customers. That grows the business. But if you can do this much and you have a customer base already and you're always trying to recruit new customers, what happens if you can suddenly do this much? You can turn around and go back to all those existing customers like that and start showing them what you can do. For example, if you look up here, I got some embroidery up there and I got some screen print right there. So if you are an embroiderer, the only thing you can do up here is that. All this stuff you can't do. Screen printer, you can do that, but you can't do this. You add sublimation and look what all we can do suddenly. Sublimation opens the doors because we can do so much stuff and we get a great ROI, return on our investment, because the sublimation system is very low cost, but look at all the things I can do. If I buy an embroidery machine, I'm going to spend $12,000 probably starting out, and by the time I put digitizing software and some other stuff, I might be up to $15,000. If I'm going to buy a multicolor press, even a manual press, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars. I get an automatic. I'm spending a lot of money, okay? But yet, what can I do with that automatic press? T-shirts and sweatshirts. That's about it. But with sublimation, I can do the plaques, and I can do awards, and I can do promotional products, and I can do souvenirs, I can do name badges. I mean, there's a ton of stuff that I can do for very, very low cost. So that's one of the things you start focusing on is being able to do more for your existing customer. With the economy and people holding back a little bit, a lot of the bigger companies that would spend this much money, they're spending this much money. They're still buying some sublimation and some screen printing and some embroidery. They're just not buying as much. So if you could only do one thing, you're getting less dollars from a lot of your customers. But if suddenly you can do multiple things, you can turn around to that same exact customer and say, oh, by the way, Do you need to do this? You need to do that? Because I can do it now too because I have the capabilities. You can say sublimation if you want, just say capabilities, okay? Definitely expands your reach. But the key is to really be able to sell is to know what you're selling. And interestingly enough, so many people don't really understand what they're selling because they're out there trying to sell sublimation, okay? Digital decoration. And that's not really what you're selling because like I said, most people have no clue what it is and most don't even care. But there are some things that you need to understand to get this in perspective. Number one, your customers don't really care about the process, only the end result, okay? They don't really care how you got there. They just want to know that you can get there and that you developed what they needed, okay? And it was good quality, we hope. Your customers have no imagination and very little vision, okay? And you've probably seen that. They come in with the most boring things, and boring in equals boring out. That's bad. You don't want to be boring in equals boring out. Okay, and finally, your customers have needs and don't even know it. And that's part of this too. If you're just an order taker, you're not going to get very far in life, you know, because this is very creative what we do. So just being an order taker ain't good enough, okay? I learned that the hard way, okay? For you embroiderers in here, you'll like this, and the rest of you will probably figure it out too. I had somebody send me an order once, and it was for embroidery, and I had to digitize it. And if you don't know what that is, it's a process of being able to turn the artwork into something machines can run. It's not a scan and sew. It's a very involved process. You have to engineer every design. And it was, you know, it was a logo, and it came to me actually to a fax machine. You gotta love that. And I worked very hard to set it up. And the hardest part was these little dots. And sewing dots with embroidery is a nightmare. And I worked very, very hard. I spent hours getting these little dots all laid out in this logo, just like they were on the artwork. And then I went and took a sew out to the customer. He said, hey, this looks great, but where are all these stupid little dots in here? I said, well, they're in your artwork. And they said, no, that's not part of my logo. And I said, well, it was in the artwork that you sent me. And I'm sitting here looking at it saying, yeah, they do look kind of stupid. Why didn't I question this? He said, well, wait a minute. Let me see what's going on. He walked in the back, came out laughing. He said, oh, they made a copy on the copier and there's dirt on the glass. And I said, you know, I spent hours digitizing the dirt. Yeah. So, you know, that's when I learned you can't be a robot. You got to look at things and you got to challenge them and say, you know, that's probably not going to look good, or what are you doing here, okay? So you start to learn that kind of stuff. But the key is, this big question is, what are you really selling out there, okay? And we're going to answer this question because this sounds like a simple question. And you guys usually have really good answers, like you're selling yourself, you're selling quality, that's good, but that's not really what I'm talking about here, okay? So we're going to do a visual test, all right? First test item is, what is this? So if you look up there, you see mouse pads, okay? If you say mouse pads, you're technically correct. If you say sublimated mouse pads, you're still technically correct, but you're really wrong, okay? Because, yes, this is advertising. You don't walk into the customer and say, hi, I'm Jimmy, I can do sublimated mouse pads, huh? Okay? If you walk in and you show them how you can help benefit them and their business with a product that you created, you know, like this mouse pad. Yeah, I love this mouse pad here, okay? Now, I recreated this so I don't get in trademark troubles, but this is based on a real order, okay? And this is a fictitious company. It says Sally Ann's. Sally Ann's is in the business of delivering fast food. In her case, burgers, all right? You can think pizza, and that gives you a better idea of who this was designed for originally. All right, but not only do we have on this mouse pad a picture of a burger, we have a menu. And we have the pricing, and we have the phone number, and we have the website. So if that's sitting there at the customer's computer all day long and they're staring at that burger, unless they're a vegetarian, they're probably getting hungry, okay? So they're being stimulated. This is a tool, okay? Most people make the mistake in a promotional product. They put a logo on something and give it to somebody, and no one ever sees a logo. Like, okay, everybody tell me what logo's on this ink pen. I don't even know. Oh, it's a competition for this hotel. Okay, so, but the point is, you know, that's a typical promotional product. And most people, you know, yeah, I got Hilton Garden that time. See, I did better, just in case they're looking. But most people never really notice what's on the pen. They write and throw it away. This is something people will keep for a long time, and it's actually promoting, it's stimulating, it's a call to action. Okay, this is a great piece for advertising right here, okay? All these things up here can be very useful. And the key is to look at the customer you're going to and then help find things that make sense for them and their customers, okay? So here's a good example of what we're talking about. What do you see here? Hard Rock Cafe. Okay, listen closely to my question. How many of you have never heard of Hard Rock? What? Everybody in here has heard of Hard Rock? They do some good advertising, don't they? Well, let's see. It must have been their TV spots. What do you think? Nah, you didn't see, because they don't do TV. Maybe it was radio. No, they don't do that either. I know it was all those spots in the newspaper. Nope. The only print media they do is for Hard Rock Hotel and some of the travel magazines. How do you know who Hard Rock is? T-shirts. Yeah. T-shirts all day long. And did those get, did they give them away free to advertise? Oh, no, no, no. You priced the Hard Rock shirt lately? Okay. Typically $25. And people pay that and wear it around to advertise for them. Okay. That's how they do all their advertising. And that's where they make their money. They make a lot of money too. In fact, people are mistaken in thinking that Hard Rock is a restaurant that sells T-shirts. It's actually a T-shirt shop that sells hamburgers. Don't ever forget that, okay? Now, I don't know the revenue numbers there. I know when Planet Hollywood was in its peak, because I knew somebody inside Planet Hollywood, that greater than 50% of their revenue came from not just shirts, but all the other merchandise that they sold. That's pretty powerful, okay? It also says something about their food. Okay, we'll leave that at that. All right, you don't go to Hard Rock for the food. You go for the experience, okay? And, you know, trust me, I have some Hard Rock shirts that say places like Barcelona, okay? I don't have one that says Orlando because I don't care, okay? But Barcelona is a little more exotic. So that's what we're talking about. Now, you might not be some of the Hard Rocks of the world, but how many people can you go into? You know what? I can go into Joe's tackle shop, and I can sell Joe a shirt that has his business name on there. I mean, look, I had a couple of fishing shirts because I'm really big into the fishing. I've created lots of fishing designs and everything else over the years. But when you look at here, we have one that's the classic redfish. Now, if you had this design that says the classic redfish, and on the front, you put Joe's tackle shop, you could go into Joe and say, listen, I'm going to show you a way to have people pay you to advertise for you. You pull this shirt out that has a really cool fish thing on the back and his name on the front. And put, you know what, might as well put his name on the bottom too, okay? Because the fisherman is buying the shirt. Why? Because it has the redfish on there. That's why the fisherman's going to buy it, okay? But the reality is it also has Joe's name on there and Joe's name over here. So every time when somebody wears it, Joe's getting promoted, but the guy bought it for that. Trust me, I know, because I have my own collection of saltwater fish designs, which I've sold all up and down the East Coast. And over again, it's the appeal of the fish, and all we do is drop in the business name and go with it. That's the whole concept about people will pay you to advertise for you, okay? Doesn't work with everything. Doesn't work for Ruth Chris Steakhouse, I don't believe. But, you know, for the right business, it can. So keep that in mind, okay? All right, moving on to our next test question. What is this? It's a coffee mug. How about a ceramic coffee mug that's been sublimated? Okay, nah. This is what we call a souvenir, okay? This is important. Marketing is all about presentation and packaging. And I don't mean packaging putting in a box. I mean, how do we package it to the customer? What is a driving force? Why is the customer going to buy this? When people go on their vacations, they leave their brain at home and replace it with their gold card, okay? Because when people go on a really nice vacation, it's like a fantasy. They watch too much of TV or something. It is a fantasy. They got away from their regular, normal, everyday life, and for 1 week, they're going to live it up and enjoy themselves. And then they're going to hate themselves for a year as they pay off the credit card bills. But for that 1 week, they buy things they would never buy, okay? Believe it or not, we used to embroider toilet paper. And toilet paper retailed for $25 a roll in gift shops in Las Vegas. Kid you not. Some really cute logos we put on there too, like Royal Flush, but anyway. Believe it or not, man. I mean, people buy this stuff when they're on vacation. So it's the same thing here. People are going on vacation, they want souvenirs of where they went. Couple of reasons. Number one, sometimes they want to take a piece of where they were home with them, okay? Now that's the funny thing because they didn't read the label, okay? So when you go to Maine, you want to take a piece of Maine home, and you take the coffee mug home and it's got Maine on there, and then you look underneath, it says made in China, right? So, okay, you really took home a piece. Second, it's like bragging rights. It's been there, done that, okay? So you have these things. Part of it's to remind you of those great times, and part of it's to let everyone else know what you've done, and maybe they haven't, okay? There's psychology here. Now, a good souvenir has two concepts to it. Number one, an interesting graphic, okay? I mean, that's kind of a boring graphic, but it really works because New York's made so much of that particular graphic. But number two, it has to say where I was. It's not really a souvenir, it doesn't say where you were. Now, it's hard to see right here, but this does say Key West. I know it's blurry. It says Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville, Key West. Okay, Lighthouses of Ohio, New York. That one was, I think, San Diego. That one in the top corner I put there for a reason. Now that's from home. That's North Carolina. That's the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse. How would I know that? Well, I live there, okay? But the reality is that's not a good souvenir because it doesn't say where I was. So when you're producing things to sell for souvenirs, first of all, the fun thing is do your own designs, okay? Do your own designs. That way color matching is never an issue. There's nothing to compare it to. That's my design, okay? And so you want a creative design, but you gotta say been there, done that. And been there, done that is probably more important than anything else. That's the number one reason people buy a souvenir, is to say where they've been. Number two is to have a really interesting look. You gotta have both of them to be successful. Now there's a lot, all this stuff has got psychology, okay? When you do sales and marketing, there's a lot of psychology involved. And part of everything you do is not only making sure that that goes to the end user, but you also got to look about your customer, because here I'm selling something to be resold. So I got to think about that in pricing, but I got to think about other things too. I was trying to break into this marketplace. I live on the coast of North Carolina. Most of our tourist industry in my region is summer business, okay? So I'm trying to break into that, and I'm going to the smaller shops. I'm not going to chain shops, and I'm trying to sell, you know, some of my unique products. Everything I'm showing them is unique. It's not the same thing everybody else has. And I've never seemed to get the right people at the right time to make a purchase. And I finally met a store owner who sat down and had lunch with me and the wife, and she started explaining to me how they buy. And she said, what we do is we go to these souvenir and gift shows, and they start up in late October, and they run into January, and then they kind of, you know, for the summer business, that's pretty much where it ends. We go to these shows, and we see all this merchandise, and we write up orders, and we go home, and from the bank we borrow the money that we're going to buy all of our inventory, and we place our orders at the beginning of the year, and then they're delivered for summer business. Typically you get about a third of it for Easter weekend. You'll get another third somewhere between Easter and Memorial Day, and you'll get the final delivery somewhere right after Memorial Day, typically 1st of June, okay? And so she said, that's the way we do it. So we're actually ordering out in November. And I'm like, oh, so I got to come real early. And she said, yeah. And but then I started asking other questions. I said, you know, listen. And so she said, that's the way we do it. So we're actually ordering out in November. And I'm like, oh, so I got to come real early. And she said, yeah. And but then I started asking other questions. I said, you know, listen, when I go shopping, I'm a big guy. I can never find what I like in my size. She said, well, it's probably been sold out. I said, I know, but when does you get more in? She said, well, we don't. I said, what do you mean? She said, we're working in an industry where you order everything in advance, and you're taking delivery. You're buying a year's worth of merchandise. You're taking delivery in stages, and then you hope to get rid of it all by the end of the season. I said, well, what about your reorder? She said, well, we don't. I said, what do you mean you don't? She said, well, it doesn't work that way, because the companies that sold us the stuff, they're working on snow skiing season in the summer. And so somebody get this straight. The stuff that sells really good, you can't get more of, and the stuff that doesn't sell very good, you're stuck with. She said, yeah, that's about it. And I said, so how do you know what's going to sell and what doesn't? Well, you know, when you have a lot of it, well, I don't really know. It's luck. You know, I mean, as much as anything. They all want to say it's experience, but a lot of it's luck. You know, and I said, And then I started thinking, here's a big weakness. Is there something I can do here? I said, listen, instead of you ordering 500 or 1,000 of something, what if I sell you 48 shirts? 48 shirts, you can put them in, you can test market, see how it goes, and then you know what? When you sell those out, call me, and I can have you 48 more in a week or less. You can do that? I said, absolutely. I said, now you don't have to warehouse this stuff somewhere. You don't have to buy it and hope that you sell it. You get to test it out. You're controlling your inventory, keeping your costs down. Now she looks at my price. She said, oh my God, you're a lot more money. I said, yeah, but you know what? The risk is gone. And you know what? If you want to get it cheaper, after you sell this first 48 and you're confident, call me back and say you want to get 480. We'll work through that, okay? But the point being that I was offering to them is a low-cost way to do on-demand printing or just-in-time inventory, which means they keep their inventory costs down because they can pick up the phone and call me. Plus, I said, any design I show you today will be available forever. A lot of these other companies, the seasonal design is gone, you can't get it again. So this was just me exploiting a weakness, understanding the market. Yeah, I was more expensive, but I didn't require them to buy 500. Now a lot of them, well, I'll go to China and get 500 pieces. I said, you know what? You got a long lead time, you can't reorder, and then when you get it, you realize it didn't sell, you're stuck with it. So you got it cheap, but you're still stuck with it, you lost money. So that became one of my angles, and that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. What is the angle that you need to make that market work for you? You got to understand the marketplace. Oh, look, there's Hard Rock again. You know, but that's also an example of a souvenir, not just advertising. One other thing on that, they're not the only ones in the shirt business this way. You ever heard of Harley Davidson? Let's start that one all over again, right? Who's never heard of Harley Davidson? Have you noticed that they're having more and more shops without motorcycles? You know, that's an interesting turnaround because they're turning into a t-shirt shop that sells motorcycles. Okay, they still sell a lot of motorcycles, but the point being is that's just another example of that type of phenomenon, the souvenir / advertising world. All right, so let's switch gears. What do you see here? license plate. Scared to give me answers. Sports teams, you're on the right track, okay? Couple of different things. Creative words again. We'll call this an example of spirit products, okay? Now, spirit's a powerful word. Much better marketing word than school, okay? To say spirit. All these things up here are what we call spirit products, whether it be apparel or hard goods or flags or anything else. Now, in the spirit world, not to be confused with ghost hunters, but in the spirit world that we're talking about typically sports, okay, where we got the school spirit. And so we're start talking now about schools, focusing on schools. What is it the schools do not have? Money. Okay, schools, they don't have any money. It's getting worse and worse. The money is the parents, in theory, okay, and maybe the kids, but really the parents, okay? So if you want to get money out of a school, with some exceptions, but for the most part, you want to go after the support groups, the booster organizations, okay, because they engage in fundraising, another very powerful word when we're talking about spirit products. Spirit products fundraising goes hand in hand, okay? No two ways about that. And the reality is if you approach the people who theoretically have money but are looking to make money, you meld the two of these together and you start creating fundraising programs for people. Now, I have been on both sides of the fence. I spent 3 long, painful years as the president of the band boosters and my son's, well, all my kids' high school. And, you know, we have a very competitive marching band, or we did with that band director, so we traveled. And it cost a lot of money. It cost about $25,000 just to support the band outside of what the school gave us. And then we had to, to go to competitions and see even more money. So we were very actively engaged in raising money to support our organization. A big part of what we sold is spirit products, okay? In fact, we have a deal with the high school, still stands today, that all logoed merchandise has to be bought through the band. Anything sold, the band is the only one that can do it. The athletic boosters has all the food concessions, but we have all of the spirit concessions. So we have a tent at every football game where we're selling products, basketball games, a school cafeteria, website. Christmas is huge. We'll do $10,000 worth of business in the first 3 weeks of school in spirit merchandise. Now, they use someone beside, I've never did any of the printing for it because they've traditionally used the same company for many years. But there's a concoction of all kinds of things, wide range. And this becomes important again because now you want to go get, when you were talking about the school groups and the parents, you want to get there in front of these people and you want to hit them up. You need to understand their pain. Trust me, I know the pain of all these fundraising programs. I mean, there's some good fundraising programs out there, are some horrible ones, but when you're head of an organization, you get hit constantly with, fundraiser. We got a great fundraiser, and you read the small print, and they get 60%, you get 40%. What's wrong with this picture? And they got all these parameters, and it's only available this time period, and it's all restrictive, and like I said, it seems like they make all the money. But when we started doing this, it was totally different because basically we're choosing the markups ourselves. Okay, we're being supplied the product at a wholesale rate, and we mark it up. So we actually control what we make. So when I go and relate to other organizations, my approach is very simple. It's like, listen, are you guys tired of the same old when it comes to fundraising? Attractions books, newspaper, magazine ads, pizza dough, cookie dough, candles, a bunch of stuff that nobody really wants. Has it gotten so bad that when the kids go out in the neighborhood to sell that the neighbors turn off the lights and close the blinds because they don't want any more of that stuff? I mean, that's the truth. And I name everything that I know they're selling, okay, because I know what they've been through. And I said, isn't time to find something that's kind of fun, interesting, unique, and different? And let me tell you what, a spirit fundraiser is probably one of the best ways you can do it. Now, at the high school level, that kind of stuff works really good. And you got to have a wide range because a lot of these kids don't have a lot of money, okay? And you know what? We'll sell a whole lot of these, $2 items to those. And then we got parents that want high-end shirts, and they're willing to pay $30 for them, okay? So they're going to have the nice poly-performance shirts, the school mascot and everything on it. So we do have that wide range in there. But it goes beyond that. I don't know let's see if I included pictures on this one. Yeah, this is my other favorite one. When you go into elementary schools, okay, different approach. One of the best things you can do in an elementary school is kids' artwork, okay? Kids' artwork. Man, what parent would not pay for, little Sally's drawings on something? Sean, get ready for this, okay? I hope you're saving your money, okay? Just making sure, okay? And here's the beauty of this too. Color matching is not an issue, okay? Resolution is not really an issue, okay? Because you're taking their artwork and then you're scanning. Now the danger is if you're scanning, or better yet, taking a picture of a really good digital camera, you may have some gray background that you got to work on, okay? But the reality is you're transferring their images onto these kind of products, and the parents are paying. Usually the PTA is running this in the elementary school, but there's enough margin in there, and I've bought enough of this stuff, and my kids, my oldest is 23, and the 18-year-old walked in my office just yesterday, and she said, I made you a coaster when I was in kindergarten. Where is it? Now, it's somewhere in my desk. I know it is, you know, so I had to scramble and go find it. I knew where it was. So the thing is people never throw those away. And this has a tremendous amount of sentimental value. And people will pay top dollar for that because they're buying memories here. And that's a very important aspect. So this is this is another angle you can go in the world of fundraisers. Okay, oh, I gotta love this one. So what is this? We got a T-shirt. It says Will Lake Hunting Club. Okay, rednecks, but that's okay. Rednecks have money too.
That's the one that got away.
Yeah, that's the one that got away. So this is an example of making a statement, and people make statements all day long. I mean, the Harley Davidson guy makes a statement, but people make a statement by what they wear all day long. So I go into a lot of clubs. You go into a club with deer hunters, and you show them a really good-looking deer, they get excited. Now you take it a step further, because at least in the Carolinas, okay, I'm not implying the other states of the Union here, but in North Carolina, South Carolina, they're really big into beer drinking as well as deer hunting, okay? So now if we go and create something a little more interesting, put it on the back of the shirt, says hunting bucks and knocking back long necks. That's how I roll. You will sell those by the truckload for any good, decent hunting club in the state of North Carolina or South Carolina, okay? So that's what I'm talking about, creativity. This is okay. This is more interesting right here. Now, what sells better than any of the rest is when you got a picture of Bobby Joe and the buck he shot, and he's got blood all over him and blood all over the back of his pickup truck, and he's holding up the head so you can see the antlers on there. You take that picture and put it on something, Bobby Joe will buy a lot. It's big time stuff, man. So that probably, I don't know how they're into hunting down here in Texas, but I'll tell you in the Carolinas, that's huge. But it's all about making a statement. That's what it is. I do a lot of work with the Marine Corps. They're fun too, because they make all kinds of interesting statements, let me tell you. And they like to reprint those any way that they can. Okay, what do we got here? A boring looking puzzle. It's actually not a puzzle. That's kind of cool. It's actually a 4-piece coaster set. Well, we got a girl in there, you know. But what we really have is a personalized gift. And here we are, the value of words again. We start talking about personalization. We just took it to a higher level of value, because that means it's been created specifically for some person with something going on. And most of our personalization involves pictures. Okay, we have Christmas ornaments up here, you know, the baby's first Christmas, and you got a picture of the baby, you know, but throughout all of these things, you're seeing the real people, and it's personalized for them. Personalization drives up the value tremendously, and it keeps some of those margins up. You put somebody's picture on something, it doesn't get thrown away unless it's a horrible picture. Driver's licenses get thrown away, okay? But, you know, a real picture of somebody doesn't ever get thrown away. That's why that's huge. Now, this kind of fits into the personalization mode, but again, we're throwing some really cool marketing terms, and we use words like a memory. A memory is worth a lot, because Hannah Elizabeth is only a baby once, and for a fairly short period of time. And mom and dad and grandparents, they all want to preserve that memory forever, so they're willing to pay to have that done. Now, this is done two different ways. One is an actual picture frame, you drop the photo in. The other is you just take basically a plaque and you put the whole thing on there all together. Now, you're talking about a plaque that maybe is $6, depending on the plaque that you're buying, and you're talking about 50 cents worth of ink on there, but you're talking about a retail price, because you got her picture and you got her name and you got all the other little stuff in there, 25, 30 bucks, okay? Because that's a precious memory that people want to preserve forever. Have other creative words that go with it, things like a keepsake or an heirloom, okay? All these things tie in together. These things don't get thrown away. You know, when people take pictures with cameras, well, we used to have cameras, now they do it with their cell phones, but it used to be people took a picture with a camera and it went in a photo album, and then eventually the photo album went in a drawer somewhere. Now we take pictures and they go on Facebook, okay? But the reality is, when we put pictures onto these kind of things, they never disappear. That's what you go into somebody's house, in somebody's office, and they're surrounded by all these images that are memories of their life, okay? And they pay top dollar for those types of products, good quality products. And that's important to keep in mind. How do you position this? Do you position it for that, or you just say, listen, we can put a picture of the kid on this little plaque here thing, we'll add some graphics and we're done, okay? You just lower, just by how you said it, once you said, you just lower the perceived value of what you're talking about. Let my wife get hold of you. She starts pouring the emotion in on one of these things, you'll be paying $50 for it, okay? I mean, you know, it really is how it's being presented. By the big jockey husband who doesn't do such things, about the newborn baby girl coming into their family, and the wife wanted to have that printed on the fabric and then framed and hung in the nursery. Instead, she was convinced that, because she was looking at embroidery, but she was convinced that, you know what, we can actually just print this out on, you know, a plaque, but we can make it look like parchment paper when we do it. So the end result is you got a $6 plaque with, you know, again, 60 cents worth of ink on there, and then she's paying 50 and 60 bucks for it. You know, incredible numbers, because it's not the product, it's not the cost to make it, it's the perceived value in her mind, okay? The importance of what she's buying there. So, I mean, all those things are important. Okay, the final item, my favorite one though, that really sums everything up what we're talking about here is, what is this? Now, if you say to pet rock, you're technically right and completely wrong, but from a marketing perspective, this is proof that people buy just about anything if it's packaged creatively. And I don't mean the box. I mean how it was presented. My goodness, this was rock. And they sold millions of them, okay? Okay, it's a polished rock, all right. They sold millions of these things, okay? It's the ultimate pet. It doesn't mess up the floor. It doesn't bark. It doesn't scratch. It doesn't chew anything. It doesn't have to be fed. You don't have to take it to the vet. They went on and on and on. And they turned it into a phenomenon, and people bought into it. It wasn't that they made a rock that was pretty. Would you like to buy one of my rocks? See, that wouldn't have worked. They gave it a whole life. And then they added the box and the house and the clothing and the birth certificates and everything else. It was all how it was packaged. And that's my whole point here, is packaging makes all the difference in the world. How do you present your products to the world? Okay? That looks silly on the surface, except that it worked. So when we ask the question, what is it you're selling? Well, at the end of the day, you're selling products that use decoration and embellishment to deliver a message and or enhance the value of the item being offered for sale. Okay? That's what your focus has to be. It's not how we did it, it's what we created in the prospect. Now, I didn't understand that in the beginning, and you learn your best lessons from getting slapped in the face or kicked in the rear or whatever, right? That's just reality. People only pay what they think it's worth. If you have a house for sale and the real estate agent tells you it's worth $1 million, and the tax guy says it's worth $1 million, in 5 years, you haven't been able to sell it for $1 million. Is it worth $1 million? Not to anybody that's shopping. So the reality, it's only worth what someone will pay for it. Doesn't matter what you think it's worth, it matters what they think it's worth. Your job is to get that value up the best you can. Big part of what we do is pictures. And I don't just mean photographs, but pictures. Remember that. Pictures worth 1,000 words and a fistful of dollars and $1 million too. Your goal in everything you do, going back to dull and boring, which you don't want to do, is to turn ordinary into extraordinary. When you get a substrate like the mouse pad that you can barely see up there, but that is supposed to be a mouse pad, it's a white piece of neoprene. That's it. Okay, it's a floppy little thing. Your job is to turn it into that masterpiece that becomes that promotional product that makes that customer, you know, successful. And yeah, that customer put those on pizza boxes when they delivered pizzas and ordered a lot more, okay, because it actually benefited them. So taking that ordinary into extraordinary. You know, photography. We can do great photography with Sublimation. We've got good images. That right there's a good seller. That's somebody's kid on the gridiron there, and somebody will pay money to buy, not a lot, but they'll buy a few of these pieces of their son there, okay? So we're talking about, you know, an award plaque, a photo panel, or whatever. You know, again, you're talking about something materials cost is probably $8 or less when you put the ink and everything in it. Just that nice thing there, good photo representation, you might get 15, 20 bucks for it. Okay, because you got a picture of them on there. But if you take it and change it just a little bit, there's some interesting substrates out there in the world. Here we took the same image and now we put in some customized text in there. We made it look like a football by giving it just texture in the artwork. Really, it would have been better if it had the kid's name up there and then regional champs down there below, because then you can sell one to every person on the team. You got the same materials cost, but you can sell that for $30. Same production time, except artwork. A little bit more work, okay? Same production time, same material cost, probably double the retail. Now, you can template that, and you'll be interested. It's interesting, there's a lot of neat templates online already, but you can template that the first time, and then all you gotta do is drop in new pictures and new names, okay? So after you get past the first one, the setup time's pretty easy. You know, here we're going to do kind of the same thing. You know, again, this is good product. You can make good money on it. But here, if you look closely, I've taken that boy there and turned him into a girl. Now you see, there is really important because there's that daughter they never had, okay? But the reality is I didn't have a girl version of that. But here, you know, just look at the difference. What we have over there is we got a nice product. Here we have something that we took, that's not even dull and boring, that's average. But over here, that becomes that extraordinary version by simply adding in some cool graphics, some extra text and whatnot, okay? That's what we're talking about. We put in some more artistic work, but we raise the perceived value of the product. You know, a lot of you, or maybe some of you, have been involved with trophies and engraving, and nothing, it's a great business to be in. I'm not knocking anything, but when you start talking about an engraved plaque, it's kind of, well, you can't put his picture. I haven't figured out how to engrave a picture yet. So we don't have a picture of Jerry on there, and we don't really have the school colors very much on there. We got a wooden plaque with some black and some, you know, gold. Here, we're actually put in Eddie Lewis's picture sliding in the home plate. And what we've done there is we've made a statement that Jerry Farnsworth was on the Wildcats or whatever. But here we captured the moment that made him an MVP. Even if it said MVP there, you didn't capture the moment. We captured the moment. That's when it happened right there. And we put in the school logo. We put in the school colors. We put in everything we wanted. And yet this costs less to make than that. And I can sell it for more money. That's pretty powerful there, just because how we made it extraordinary that way. You know, the kids thing, you know, you got that, that's nice, and then you got the Hannah Elizabeth, you know, you just put that much more into it. Just constantly looking for ways to spruce it up, make it more exciting. You know, surfing's big where I'm at, and I was out watching one of the tropical storms move by, because luckily we haven't had hurricanes in a while, but I've been in the eye of 4 of them, but lately they haven't come quite our way. But I'm taking pictures of kids out there surfing, and then, you know what, they're seeing me take pictures and they want, hey, can you, give me the picture? Can you make t-shirts? And all this other stuff started coming out. Yeah, okay, here's money. What we did was just start combining graphics together with the image. So you can actually do graphics in the image and you customize that and you got that kid, okay? Him doing his thing. That's really good at special events because, again, you can capture pictures of different kids. Maybe it's a swim meet or something like that where you're capturing them and actually doing them on the spot. I've done a lot of mobile work. For a while, we had a big trailer, air conditioning, power, and everything. We went to events and did stuff on the spot. So, you know, that's another avenue for doing things. And then your graphics in general, just always think if somebody comes to you and they want to get, they got a championship baseball team and they want to get the baseball clip art and they want to put some text above it and text below it, that's basic, boring, average, okay? But that's what they said they wanted. So if you're an order taker, that's what you do. But if you're a thinker, that's what you do, okay? Look at the difference between this and that. I mean, imagine though if you just had Hanville Tigers, national champs, the difference this impact has made here. You'll sell more units of this. Oh, by the way, that's a piece of, I hate to call it clip art, that's a piece of very high quality clip art from a company, Great Dane Graphics. And you're able to just drop it, it's like templated for you because you can take and change all those things once you just load it into your software. So, you know, that's important to remember. A lot of these graphics are actually available online. You know, why make a football when you can make a killer football? Literally. So, you know, think about that with the graphics. You don't have to be a graphic artist, but there's some good stuff online you can use that will really take you to that next level. Finally, think outside the box. I mean, dare to be different in what you do. I mean, there's a lot of neat things out there. Yeah, you got to have that polymer coating, okay? Or else be a polyester product for it to work. But, you know, the acrylics, because you guys have some beautiful acrylic work over here. Acrylics are great, okay? It's relatively new, but it's different. And if you haven't looked at the acrylics or look at it, it's really cool the way that they came out. Flip-flops. There's flip-flops available for sublimation. Well, I love the flip-flops. Pretty cool. The tile, and I know that he's got some tile over there, but I'm seeing tile on big scale. Tile where people are doing like a 6 foot by 8 foot on a wall in an office and charging, you know, several $1,000s for it. But materials cost is much lower than that. You know, that becomes a whole industry all by itself. You know, the food bowls, the dog pet bowls, that's done with an oversized wrap is how that's done. Number 2 category for disposable income of Americans is their pets. You know, here it was done on fabric that somebody sewed into a pillow. Somebody would pay a lot of money for that. People that have those 2 dogs will pay a lot of money for that pillow. Then they'll put the pillow up there and the dogs will sit on there and chew it all up. I love that, but whatever. Now, here's my final one though, thinking inside the box, okay? A little different approach. But it's always, I like to add something to leave you with. That's a great thing to leave you with, right? But just to show you versatility and the people being creative, unique, and different. And this right here is called a casket cap panel. Now see, you're going to learn about casket construction in my class, how you like that. But that is actually called a cap. It's not called a lid or a door. It's called a cap, okay? And most of you have probably never ever noticed that there is a recessed area inside that cap. But an entrepreneur several years ago looked at that and said, hey, we could decorate something and stick it in there. Now, it was initially done with embroidery. This is where I first saw it done. And I actually was doing consulting with a company that started in the sewing room of a lady's house, and now it's a multi-shift operation called Bev's Thread. Still sounds pretty small. They're a huge industry now in Indiana. They service over 100 different casket companies. So I had the opportunity to go in, very eerie, okay? Because you walk into the production area and there's this aisle. It's kind of like church. Going down the aisle, over here are embroidery machines. Over here are caskets. And you're like, oh. You know, so you're kind of walking down the aisle and then you're kind of like, well, we'll look at that. Hey, how you guys doing? And try not to think what's behind you, you know? And then you notice that people are using caskets for desks and they're eating lunch on them because they're all sample units. They're never going to be used because these guys aren't a casket company. They make inserts for casket companies, okay? But they showed me how they did it, and now they've switched and started doing with digital printing. But originally it was done with embroidery, which actually became pretty expensive. But basically they're embroidering images on fabric that's wrapped around cardboard, heavy gauge cardboard that's been cut to fit for each different brand of casket in there. They wrap the fabric around, they actually tape it on the back side, then they add double-sided tape, and then they send it to the casket companies. Now see, initially there wasn't much personalization because the casket companies were buying with stock. Okay, they have Marine Corps logos, Navy logos, they have some licensed teams that they did. They had licensed to do John Deere tractors. And so the casket companies would pre-order and keep them in stock. The funeral home calls the casket company, ships it to them overnight, and then the funeral home, funeral director sticks it in. They could do some personalization if you needed it, again, overnight service. It's kind of funny, when I was in there the first time, I'm looking at this and they're wrapping the fabric around the cardboard and they got double-sided tape, and they said, well, the funeral director puts it in there. I said, well, how long is that going to stay in there? And they said, well, how long does it need to stay in there? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. Not that long, right? So, but there's all, you know what, if you actually go to embroider the Marine Corps logo on there, it takes about 3 hours or so. So it's expensive. And you have to have, and see, they got rooms full of fabric to match all the different casket linings. All right? So somebody got smarter, and they said, hey, listen, digital printing, we can use white fabric, and we don't even have to worry about the fabric color matching the lining, because the embroidery doesn't cover the whole panel, so they want it to blend in. Here, it doesn't matter. So what they're doing now is they're just taking white fabric and they're digitally printing things, that relate to that person. I mean, this guy was obviously a golfer. You got his picture, you got the golf scene, you got his name, you got everything else, and this is printed on there, wrapped the same way and installed, okay? It's interesting, it's unique. They retail these panels $250 to $300, and you can imagine they're not that expensive to make, okay? And some of the casket companies do it, and there's entrepreneurs that do it as well. Now, if you don't want to do the casket cap panels, we also have people that are doing the same concept just on plaques that are put on an easel, and sold to the family. It's kind of interesting. Sawgrass was at a funeral show this week, and the guy, I don't think you've met him, Pat McGinnis in marketing, he called back, he said, look, there's a casket in our booth. Somebody's got to get this thing out of here, and it's like, well, you expect, you're at a funeral show. I mean, so he was next to a casket for the week and figuring out every little angle he could. But you know what? It may not be an area you want to go into, and that's not the point. The point is an entrepreneur figured out a way to make some money in this particular marketplace. And I actually know some funeral homes that make their own plaques, but a lot of them contract it out because they don't want to be in the sublimation business. It's something that you can consider, offering the exact same concept, but just taking one of the standard products or one of the products off of there, one of those nice plaque type products, and putting in that person's image and everything else, and the family's probably going to buy several of them through the funeral home. Something to think about, just a little different. Okay, summing it all up, the keys to making money. Well, first of all, don't focus on price. Price is only as big an issue as you make it. And you're going to run into customers who you don't want. Because let me tell you, you have customers, if they're only focused on price, they're not a good customer, because that means they're always looking for a cheaper price, okay? And as I say, if they come to you looking for a low price, they leave you just as quick looking for a low price. So don't focus on price. It's always an issue, but don't do that. Also keep in mind that someone else will always do it for less. So if you start, somebody can be like, if you can do it cheaper, I'll do business with you. Guarantee you, they'll keep finding somebody that does it for less, or at least they say that. A lot of them lie to you too. But someone else will always do it for less. If I give it to you for free, someone will pay you to take it. It's the truth. It doesn't end. There's one of these theories that if I get you in at a discount price, now you're my customer, and next time I can charge you the regular price. If you get them in at a discount price, you can't raise that back up next time or they go somewhere else. Okay? It's that simple. Okay? You want to focus on, I don't know, price is always there. Don't think I don't know that. You want to focus on being the best. I know it sounds so cliche, but you know what I mean by that though is great graphics, unique products, creative packaging, how we present, not the box, okay? And finally, go where the money is. And what I mean by this is I've seen people who won't leave their neighborhood. Go where the money is, okay? Our first big foray was saltwater fishing. Sounds like a very small marketplace. Well, it is if in Dallas, okay, but it's probably a pretty big business down here in the Houston area, right? Or would be a lot bigger. Well, same thing in North Carolina. But we service tackle shops from Virginia Beach, Virginia, down to about Daytona Beach, Florida, which is almost a third of the East Coast. And yeah, we got in the car, we went to other towns to do sales calls, spent the night, we had sales trips, so we would do that. You know, me and the wife, and then as we started having kids, the wife. And I stayed home with the kids. Oh, doing the work. She was having all the fun. Okay, but the point being is, we were going after targeted markets, and we went where those markets were predominant, because that's where the money is. And I've seen people that are sitting there in their house, well, we're just going to wait for the business to come because they told us if we buy it, they will come. I said, no, that was a movie, okay? Don't you remember how that turned out? Okay, so the reality is you got to actually be active and go where the money is. Follow productive markets and then just keep going. And if you got to get in the car and drive to Louisiana because that's where the money is, go. Okay? I mean, it's about making money. If you're not willing to do that, then don't even get in the business to begin with. Okay, well, that pretty much does it for me.